Living opposite a school meant enduring the chaotic madness of pickup times, where parking transformed into a nightmare scenario. Visitors disregarded etiquette, blocking driveways and dropped curbs, causing inconveniences that would normally be shrugged off. However, one fateful day, I returned home to a sight that struck a nerve. A large ceramic flower pot lay shattered, a casualty of careless parking. My observant neighbor, a kind elderly lady tending her front garden, pointed out that a car had encroached upon my drive earlier, likely causing the damage. Fueled by a mix of irritation and determination, I decided to confront this recurring nuisance. The following day, I strategically arrived home during the notorious pickup time. True to form, there it was, a car brazenly occupying my driveway. I quickly maneuvered my car across the dropped curb and sought counsel from my neighbor, forewarning her of a potential inquiry about my vehicle. Amused by my plan, she welcomed me into her home, relishing the impending spectacle. Not long after, a woman with 2 kids returned to find her parked car absent and began an impatient quest, ringing doorbells in a frantic search for the owner. My neighbor and I exchanged delighted glances, reveling in the anticipation of the unfolding drama. Half an hour later, equipped with a carrier bag, I stealthily exited my neighbor's house and calmly strolled toward my driveway. The irate woman confronted me, demanding an explanation. With a nonchalant demeanor, I casually stated, "Some ignorant bleep parked on my drive, so I decided to go shopping." Without awaiting her response, I sauntered into my house, closing the door behind me. Shortly thereafter, the doorbell chimed again. Sensing her distress, I swiftly moved my car, and she departed, emotions in disarray. And thus, the saga concluded, an unconventional resolution to an aggravating situation caused by disregard for private property. In the whirlwind of 2013, my relationship with Martin began, a quaint romance, fueled by the energy of newfound love. Aged 32, I embarked on this journey with Martin, a 30-year-old homeowner whose abode was shared with 3 roommates, Caitlin, McKenna, and the infamous Esmeralda. Initially, the arrangement seemed harmonious, with everyone pitching in for household expenses and fostering an atmosphere of camaraderie. However, amidst this domestic harmony lurked Esmeralda, a teacher in her mid-30s, a constant shadow exuding negativity. She was estranged from her family, her demeanor dripping with disdain for others. Her vitriol targeted Caitlin and McKenna, behind their backs, while she maintained an oddly close relationship with Martin. I could hardly bear her presence, her perpetual negativity painting a gloomy hue over our interactions. My warnings to Martin about her duplicity fell on deaf ears, for she wielded a peculiar power over him, influencing his relationships and clouding his judgment. A couple of months into this dynamic, Esmeralda embarked on a journey overseas to meet her so-called fiancé. It was a facade that crumbled upon her return, a tale of betrayal where her supposed partner turned out to be a married man. Martin, eager to show support, sought to celebrate her homecoming with a congratulatory gesture, ignorant of her conniving nature. Amidst this spectacle, a curious incident unfolded. The cat, a furry confidant privy to Esmeralda's dislike, wandered into her room and marked its territory on her bed. The sight of those congratulatory balloons juxtaposed with the cat's audacious act offered a fleeting sense of poetic justice, a moment of unintended karma that resonated deeply. Sadly, the relationship between Martin and me crumbled partly due to Esmeralda's disapproval, a recurring theme in his life, signaling a crimson flag I should have heeded earlier. As time progressed, I moved on, eventually meeting my current partner. Yet, the echoes of that past lingered. In a moment of impulse, I sent an anonymous email to the religious school where Esmeralda worked, delicately questioning her fidelity with the married man. A secretive yet assertive move, driven by a sense of justice in the face of hypocrisy. Years later, my life moved forward, finding stability with my new partner. While the last whispers of news revealed that Esmeralda and Martin still cohabit, their lives intertwined in a web of misery, a reminder of the tumultuous period tainted by a woman's venomous influence.
In the coastal serenity of my neighborhood, the constant gusts of wind played an unpredictable game, propelling objects hither and thither. A typical Saturday beckoned, and I embarked on a quest to procure snacks and drinks for a tranquil weekend ahead. The grocery store's parking lot was bustling with weekend commotion, a myriad of individuals weeding their way through the concrete aisles. As I steered into the lot, a couple impulsively darted in front of my vehicle, necessitating a sudden halt. Parking at the far end, I readied myself for the store. With snacks and beverages in tow, I meandered back towards my car. My path intersected with the same couple, engaged in unloading their purchased goods into their vehicle. But as I attempted to reverse out of my parking spot, an unforeseen obstacle revealed itself, a rogue shopping cart obstructing my exit. Disgruntled, I disembarked from my vehicle, casting a glance toward the couple, met by their stern and hostile gazes. An inexplicable sense of frustration bubbled within me. After all, adjacent to their car lay a convenient ramp, specifically designed for cart placement. An internal admonishment directed at responsible behavior swirled in my thoughts. Returning to my car, an impulsive decision emerged. I'd assert my own form of cart-based justice. I positioned my car strategically, obstructing their exit. With resolute determination, I began my campaign of cart collection and redistribution. One by one, I corralled carts scattered across the parking lot, dispatching them down the ramp to their designated storage area. As I orchestrated this impromptu display of righteousness, I engaged in an inconspicuous conversation with my gaming buddy, feigning nonchalance amidst the chaos. Their attempts to communicate, peppered with angry gestures, failed to deter my mission. The wind, a silent ally, whipped around me as I multitasked, meticulously maneuvering carts and conversing on the phone. The couple's persistence did not wane. Shrouded behind their car windows, they continued their glares. Undeterred, I persisted, amusingly narrating my endeavors to my amused confidant. For a quarter of an hour, I persisted, methodically ensuring every cart found its way to its rightful place. Once content that the parking lot was cart-free, I leisurely retreated to my car. The tantalizing temptation to revisit the store for more snacks lingered, but was gently discouraged by my chuckling friend. Their lesson had been taught, albeit in an unconventional way. As I drove away, a sense of satisfaction settled within me, knowing justice, albeit cart-based, had been served.
In the neighborhood dwelled two brothers, Frank and Fred Smith, notoriety shadowing their younger days. Frank, the younger of the two, tended toward a path of responsibility as he matured, while Fred seemed eternally enmeshed in a whirlwind of reckless behavior, drugs, alcohol, and multiple run-ins with the law. A twist in their sibling saga emerged one night when Frank inadvertently left his wallet at home, finding his ID suspiciously absent the next day. Assuming it lost during a night out, he nonchalantly procured a new one, dismissing the incident as an unfortunate mishap. Little did he know, this innocent misplacement would unveil a convoluted web of deceit. A year drifted by before a phone call jolted Frank from the mundanity of daily life. His uncle, in a distressing tone, relayed news from a cousin working at the county jail, an astonishing revelation. Fred, the perennial troublemaker, had landed himself behind bars, masquerading under Frank's identity. Incensed, Frank hurried to the jail, determined to restore his rightful name and expose his brother's treachery, leading to Fred's imprisonment under his own identity. During Fred's incarcerating tenure, a letter from the state's BMV dropped into Frank's mailbox, mystifying him with its contents. The missive indicated that two vehicles, an Audi and a VW Bug, were registered under his name, an enigma since Frank only possessed a truck. Dismay engulfed him as the pieces of Fred's deception unraveled. His brother, with his driving privileges revoked due to relentless DUIs, had manipulated Frank's identity to acquire titles for these vehicles. Resolute in reclaiming what was rightfully his, Frank navigated the bureaucratic labyrinth of the BMV, procuring duplicates of the titles for a mere $16. Armed with irrefutable proof of ownership, he embarked on a quest to retrieve the vehicles, unlocked and started without keys owing to his mechanical prowess. Knocking on the doors of the respective houses where the cars were stationed, Frank presented his case with grace, exhibiting the acquired titles. Each owner, confronted with undeniable evidence, accepted the situation graciously, retrieving their belongings before surrendering the keys to Frank. A shrewd maneuverer, Frank sold both cars, reaping a tidy sum of $3,000, a reward for the turmoil he endured. Remarkably, Fred's time behind bars served as a catalyst for transformation. Freed from the clutches of addiction, he emerged a reformed individual, earning Frank's respect and fostering a bond that transcended their tumultuous past. The scenario started innocuously enough, or so it seemed. When Spouse transitioned to working from home, a peculiar phone habit began to unfold, an irritant at first, but gradually escalating to the realm of extreme annoyance. Initially, it was manageable when only family calls rang through, but as business calls started streaming in, the situation took a cumbersome turn. Whenever Spouse fielded a business call, the routine became alarmingly consistent. They'd shuffle over to wherever the narrator happened to be, hushing them with an index finger raised like a beacon of silence. The exasperating symphony continued as the narrator was commanded to maintain absolute silence, making even the slightest noise akin to an unpardonable sin. Unperturbed, the narrator decided to tackle this oddity head-on. With a house chock full of cellular dead zones, the only rational solution appeared to be engaging in household chores during Spouse's calls. However, this evolved into a bizarre dance of evasion as the narrator unwittingly found themselves at the receiving end of shushing gestures during the most innocuous of activities. Attempts to address this peculiar pas de deux were met with denial from Spouse. According to them, there was no method to the madness, just fortuitous coincidences. In an effort to thwart this surreal ballet, the narrator acquiesced to Spouse's improbable explanation. Yet, the fiasco persisted. Spouse's coincidental appearances during phone calls continued unabated. Frustrated, the narrator orchestrated a theatrical showdown, strategically positioning themselves and their faithful, anxiety-riddled, yet devoted dog in the bathroom, a cramped sanctum where any company was unwelcome. With Spouse and the protective pooch now positioned at the bathroom threshold, the narrator's tolerance reached its limit. Determined to make a point, they defiantly reached for the flush handle of the ancient, thunderously loud 1964 toilet. The mere murmur of the impending flush sent Spouse scurrying away, vanishing like a specter into the ether, long before the deafening roar of the commode's flush echoed through the house. After the tumultuous call concluded, the narrator issued a staunch warning to Spouse, proclaiming their intent to orchestrate kitchen chaos accompanied by the cacophony of bagpipe tunes should the antics persist. Promptly following this episode, Spouse opted for the sanctuary of their own office for all important business calls, ending the quirky pursuit around the house. The moral of the tale? Sometimes, a symphony of bizarre occurrences brings about an unexpected harmony, steering even the most unlikely habits towards a quieter, more office-oriented direction. Living next to a neighborhood despot can be a peculiar adventure, especially when said despot is an obstinate old man determined to claim dominion over the street like a feudal lord. His house, the first one on the block, seemed to embolden him into believing that the asphalt outside his domain was his exclusive fiefdom. The elementary school adjacent to his residence amplified the melodrama. Each morning, a parade of dutiful parents would briefly pause on the street to drop off their little ones. However, the old man, casting himself as the self-appointed guardian of street protocol, transformed the area into a paranoid domain with an excess of no parking signs. He became the bane of the neighborhood, a fervent vigilante against the brief halts of the parents' cars. For a while, the narrator managed to avoid entangling themselves in this bizarre street drama. However, fate decided to intervene when the narrator's mother, innocently strolling past the neighbor's house, became the inadvertent target of the cantankerous crusader. Enraged by the mere presence of a car parked on the street in front of his house, the neighbor unleashed a tirade of insults at the wrong target, dousing the narrator's mother in a spit-fueled storm of indignation. The incident ignited a fire within the narrator. Enough was enough. It was time to take a stand against the overlord of the street. Armed with an indignant spirit, the narrator launched a petition to the authorities, citing the perilous narrowness of the street, exacerbated by parked cars, creating an impassable obstacle for two-way traffic. Miraculously, the wheels of justice spun in the right direction. The despotic neighbor's no parking signs, symbols of his self-imposed sovereignty, were unceremoniously dismantled, replaced by a solitary official sign, an emblem of his potential fines should he dare to challenge it. The sweet taste of victory was almost palpable, knowing that the neighbor, bereft of a garage or alternative parking, was now at the mercy of the regulations he had so fervently defied. It was a satisfying victory, a small act of righteous rebellion against tyranny on the street, offering a glimpse of poetic justice that only the streets of a neighborhood can manifest.